Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk. This is Yitzchak Reuven speaking to you from south of Jerusalem. Today is the 10th day of Mar Cheshvan, 5784. It's October 24th, 2023. This coming Shabbat we read Parshat Lech Lecha. Go forth. The third Parsha, the third Torah reading of the book of Genesis. It begins Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, concludes Genesis chapter 17, verse 27. And of course, just like last week's Parshat Noach, about the great flood that was caused by the earth, the world being filled with Hamas, the Hebrew word for terror, ancient word that was so relevant to what's happening today here in Israel and in the world. So too is Parshat Lech Lecha, so very relevant. The whole concept of Lech Lecha, and also the fact that there is a major, basically a world war of sorts that takes place in this week's Parsha. All these different nations unite against other nations, and there's a big war in which Avraham, who was not an initiator of this war, but he was called into action when his nephew Lot was kidnapped from the city of Sodom, where he was residing, Sodom, say in English, and taken all the way up to Damascus. We'll be talking about that soon, but I guess it's pretty clear, the many parallels, and it's, of course, happens in the best of times. Whenever we read a Parsha, every week, it's always relevant. There's always something happening in the news, something happening right then, that week, that time, that resonates with what we're reading in that Parsha. And of course, when we are going through such, the Hebrew word would be gorali, I guess the gorali, the English word would be such fateful times as these, then it really is astounding what the Torah comes to teach us. It's always, always there for us, to teach, to help, to guide, and to strengthen us. So it's I don't even know what day, it's the 18th day of the war, I'm not even sure, 17th day, 18th day of the war that Israel is waging against Hamas, and Israel has been pounding Gaza mercilessly from the sky. You can see videos and photos of cities that have been bombed into ruins, something that might recall what the Allied forces did to the city of Mosul in Iraq when they were eradicating the world of ISIS, or what the Allied forces did to the city of Dresden in Germany, World War II, when the Allied forces were busy ridding the world of the Nazis. So that's what we're seeing, and that's what we need to see. And it's very interesting. You see, I mean, after what happened here in Israel, and the atrocities are still being uncovered. In fact, yesterday, Israel, the military, the government invited foreign journalists from all around the world, hundreds, to witness 45 minutes of video evidence of the atrocities committed by this barbaric horde of Gazans, which included both Hamas members and anybody who felt like joining them along the way. Many of the people were not directly associated with Hamas, but let's get in on it, including many people who were working in those very towns, had permits to come in and work in those towns, so they knew what was where. They knew how to direct the terrorists. They knew how to steal. They knew how to take what wasn't theirs, etc., etc. And these reporters were, I mean, there's footage of the reporters just breaking down and crying as they're watching. horrific inhumanity, unbelievable things that you read about in history books that were done once upon a time by an unenlightened world, and here it is today, 21st century, and people are still doing it. And worse than that, people around the world, educated people in freedom-loving countries, people in Western societies, people who have freedom, people who should know better, are supporting this. Not only are Ivy League schools students supporting this without any backlash from the Ivy League administrations. They seem to be perfectly fine with their students, that they're supposed to be educating, marching, and basically calling for the genocide of the Jews. But just today, Barack Obama published a lengthy, well thought out, deeply intellectual overview of the whole situation, and basically he blamed the Jews. He blamed Israel, settlements, the fact that the Palestinians are, were expelled from their land decades ago, etc., etc. Basically, he says the Jews are to blame. That's the long and the short of it. Disgusting. And even though I think Joe Biden, I think in his heart he is very, very, very pro-Israel, but his administration's policies are still to this day very pro-Iran and very pro the entire Iranian web of terror, which includes Hamas, which includes Hezbollah, which includes the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. And, he's got to sort of walk between the raindrops here. He wants to support Israel. He wants Israel to get rid of Hamas, but he still wants to have a deal with Iran. So, it's tough. It's tough for him. He's sort of torn. Again, I give him credit for the support, for the moral support, and for the military support that he's given Israel, but he's also keeps suggesting that Israel shouldn't go all the way in its destruction of Hamas, because that's going to kind of make it tough for him to present successfully the whole focus of his foreign policy for the past 4 years, which has been the exact same foreign policy with the same foreign policy team that Barack Obama, who I think I can say today, if I had any doubts before, but after what I read today from Barack Obama, that he's an anti-Semite. You know what? He doesn't like Jews. He doesn't like Israel. I guess he's entitled to his prejudices, to his racism, to his hatred. But I wish he would have the humility to shut up, because he's not the president anymore, and he's a big reason why we're all in this situation today. And he should have the decency to shut up and stay out of it. So yeah, I don't usually talk politics and temple talk, but we're not really talking politics here. This is really, this is the spiritual condition of the world today, the spiritual health of the world today, and it's not in very good shape. Fortunately, there are many people who still can see right from wrong, evil from good from evil, and humanity from Satanism, from satanic behavior, and they have no trouble picking a side, and we appreciate that very much. And among American politicians, I have seen and heard from some who speak very clearly, without any hesitation, without any ifs, ands, or buts, or reservations, that Hamas must be destroyed. I don't remember who it was, but it was someone from Congress who said, not only does Israel have the right to defend herself, but Israel has the obligation to destroy this evil, obligation for our children and our children's children. And she's 100% right. She said it perfectly. We have an obligation, and that's actually a Torah obligation. We know that. We know we're supposed to annihilate and destroy and blot the memory out of Amalek. And that's what we need to do. And Israel has not yet gone into Gaza, a ground incursion. And some people are, wondering if we're getting cold feet. I certainly pray that the government does not get cold feet. I don't think the government will. I don't think the government has a choice. Because we have to go in and take over, retake Gaza. But on the other hand, we know for a fact that the Hamas has planned for this moment for many, many years, and they have set up as many booby traps and all sorts of things to kill as many of our soldiers as they possibly can when Israel goes in. So we have to be smart, and we have to have a lot of surprises of our own in order to destroy them at minimal loss to our soldiers. And as far as the civilian loss in Gaza, pardon me for saying so, but you know what? I could care less. They're all implicit. They voted for this Hamas to rule them. They still support Hamas. They're still more popular than their arch rivals, the PLO, who are only less popular because they're less good, they're less successful at killing Jews. This is still what they want. And as much as they may regret it now, if Israel were to allow Hamas to stay, they'd be back in power with the full support of the people. And yes, I'm sure that there are some Gazans who are peace-loving people who don't like Hamas, who just want to live, a life. And I'm sorry for that. If they get killed in Israel's reprisal, but I can't be burdened by that. This is how it works. This is how it works. How tens of thousands of innocent people were killed when United States and its allies took out ISIS. I don't remember it being a big issue, topic of discussion for the entire world. Of course, Israel, it is a topic of discussion because the world likes to trouble Israel. The world likes to hate Israel for whatever we do. So we just have to ignore it. And I pray that our leaders, our political leaders, will have the integrity, the wherewithal, and the strength to just ignore all that and ignore all the limitations that even our allies might want to place on us, and that we do what we need to do. And Hamas is only part of the problem. It's the smallest part of the problem. We have Hezbollah, we have Iran. And we should go for all of them. We need to take them out for ourselves, for our people, for our land, for the world. We need to take them out. Let's turn to Parshat Lech Lecha. And of course, this is the famous world-changing Parsha, which begins with this famous world-changing verses. I'll read them first in Hebrew, then in English. Vayomer HaShem. This is chapter 12, Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Vayomer HaShem el Avraham, Lech Lecha me'artzacha u'mimoladtecha u'mibeit avicha el haaretz asher ere'eka ve'escha lagoy gadol va'avarechecha va'agarla shmecha v'haye bracha va'avarcha mavarechecha u'makalelecha ha'or v'nivrachu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama. Vayelech Avram ka'asher diber elav Hashem vayelech ito Lot v'Avram ben 5 shanim v'shiv'im shana b'tzeito mecharan. Vayikach Avram et Sarai ishto ve'et Lot ben achiv ve'et kol ruchusham asher rachashu ve'et hanefesh asher asu b'charan ve'yitzuu ללכת ארצה כנען. Hashem said to Avraham, go for yourself, Lech Lecha. The word Lech means go. Lech Lecha is just a double emphasis of the word Lech. So it's translated as go for yourself, or go to yourself, or go for the good of yourself. Go for yourself from your land, from your relatives, and make your father's and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who curses you I will curse. And all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. So Avraham went as Hashem had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. Avraham was 75 years old when he left Haran. Avraham took his wife Sarai and Lot, his brother's son, and all their wealth that they had amassed, and the souls that they had made in Haran, and they left to go to the land of Canaan, and they came to the land of Canaan. Okay. Of course, we all know these verses very well, and we all know that those who bless the children of Avraham will be blessed, and those who curse the children of Avraham will be cursed. And of course, the blessing and the curse, the children of Avraham, is through Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the children of Israel. And here we are, the nation of Israel, and today there are those who are blessing us, and they'll be blessed. And those who are cursing us, and they shall be cursed. It's that simple. And if people still don't get it, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. But all you who bless us, God bless you. That's all I can say. Lech Lecha, go from everything you know, your land, your relatives, your father's house. Just drop everything. That's what God was telling Avraham, who's still known as Avram. Just pick it up, just drop it and go to where I tell you. This may be the hardest thing for people to do, to just drop everything, what they're familiar with. Not only their when it says, your land, your relatives, your father's house, it's not merely the physical. It's what you've been taught. It's what you've grown up with. It's what you're familiar with. It's the things you believe in. There comes a time when you need to drop all those things because God's calling you. It especially resonates for me in these times right now because everybody in Israel has been called upon to drop everything and go to the defense of the nation, to drop what you're doing. A lot of people can't work, but a lot of people have just gotten up. People who hadn't been in uniform for 10 years have put their uniform on and reported. Over 180,000 Israelis who were abroad for this reason or that, some on vacation, some traveling, some because they've moved abroad for work or because they live abroad. They have come back in the first days. They came back. They had flights filled with Israelis returning, and the Air Force, the Army sent out planes to pick people up from all over the world and bring them back and to report to the Army. Lech Lecha, go, drop everything, because you have something more important. Something of a higher order. And defending the land of Israel and the people of Israel is the highest of the high. That's why we're here. That's why we have a country. That's why we have an army. And that's what makes us a people. In peacetime, we argue, we fight, we disagree. Sometimes we go to extremes, and that's not good. But in wartime, we unite. There's a famous verse from Isaiah, maybe? Help me here. It says Avraham is one. Avraham was one. Avraham was one person in the entire world that God turned to and said, I'm going to make a nation out of you, and I'm going to be your God. It started with one, and the rest of the world was into idolatry and didn't get it. And Al Pi Midrash, according to Midrash, we know that Avraham was attacked for his belief in the one God and for his efforts in trying to dissuade believers of idolatry. With a famous story when he was very young that his father Terach, living in the city of Ur, which was in the cosmopolitan of Babylon, was an idol maker. He made little wooden or stone idols, sold them. And one day he had to go, I forget the details, and he put young Avraham in charge, and Avraham took a club and smashed all the idols but one. And when his father got back, he said, "What happened? What happened?" And Avraham pointed to the one idol that he hadn't smashed, and he said he did it. He smashed all the others. And his father scolded him angrily and said, "Don't lie to me. You know that idol can't do that." And young Avraham said to his father Terach, "Then why do you believe in these? Of course he can't do it." And because of his activism against idolatry, again according to Midrash, the king of Bavel at the time, Nimrod, threw him in a fiery furnace, from which Avraham escaped unscathed, but realized then it was time to leave Ur, and that's when the family went to Haran, which is where he was at the beginning of Lech Lecha, when God told him, "Come to the land of Canaan." So there are times in our lives when we just have to drop everything that we're familiar with and set out to where God sends us. And even things that are dear to us, family, home, anyone, including myself, who made Aliyah, who came to the land of Israel on their own, which I did, I guess it was 42 years ago. That's what I did. I left my family. I love my family. I left my family. I left everything I knew. Came to a land. I barely knew the language. I have no regrets. And I didn't do it because I'm a hero or a great guy. I did it because God called me to do it. And that may sound, I don't know what, but I can't explain it in any other way. It's sort of, my faith in HaShem compelled me to do it. So, all throughout life, however comfortable we get in our routines, and however comfortable our way of thinking is, we get very, very comfortable and lazy intellectually, and we believe something. We stand for something, and when that's something that we stand for tends to be get a little shaky, we don't always say, "Wait a minute, let me re-examine." Oftentimes we just either dig in deeper or say, "Well, I'm just going to ignore the facts." And that's what a lot of people are doing right now. A lot of people who, decent people who thought that, well, there's two sides. There's Israel and there's the Palestinians and Hamas. They just want they're representing the Palestinians. They just want a place under the sun. And so, they're violent. Okay, violence, okay. And then something like what happens, which is way beyond violence, what happened 2 weeks ago, they're in a Lech Lecha moment. Are they going to do it? Are they going to go? Are they going to make a change? Or are they going to stick where they are and die? Basically become brain dead. Basically become spiritually dead, and certainly morally dead, because they don't have the wherewithal to say, got to leave that. Whatever I thought before, it was wrong. It was a form of idolatry. It was wrong. So here's your chance. So Avraham is in the land, and of course one of the first things he does was to build a mizbeach, an altar, which we know is an ancient way of man to reach out to HaShem and say, here I am. And in fact, as we read in verse 7, chapter 12, HaShem appeared to Avraham and said, to your offspring I will give this land. By the way, we, the Israelis, were the offspring that God was referring to. So he built an altar there to HaShem, who appeared to him. From there he relocated to the mountain east of Beit El, and pitched his tent with Beit El on the west and Ai on the east. And he built there an altar to HaShem and invoked HaShem by name. Then Avram journeyed on, journeying steadily toward the south. Right, Avraham traveled the width and the breadth and the length of the land of Israel. And one verse here in this week's parasha, God says to him, everywhere you look, this land is yours. It will be yours for you and your children will be many in number. Even though Avram's biggest concern was having a child. He and his wife Sarai were childless. But Hashem kept assuring Avram, and it was an interesting relationship between Avram and Hashem, because Hashem promised a lot of things to Avraham, and most of those things were going to be after, even under the best of circumstances, were going to occur after Avraham had already left the world. But even the most basic thing, having a child, Avraham was tormented by being childless. Hashem kept assuring him, but it was difficult. Anyway, the other obvious main parallel between this week's parsha and what's happening today here in the Middle East, here in Israel and the world, is the war that broke out. Now, Avraham was a man of peace. We know that. And he was a man of chesed, loving kindness. He reached out to others. You know, they say of that one of those first verses that I read a moment ago, where it said, it says, Avram took his wife, Sarai, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their wealth that they had amassed, and the souls that they made in Haran. What does that mean, the souls that they made in Haran? And the tradition is that the people who he taught about the one God, the people who he brought to Hashem, those were the souls he made. So he was reaching out. And of course we know the famous attribute of Hachnasat Orchim, welcoming in guests into his tent, that's attributed to Avraham. And we'll be talking about that more in next week's Parsha. But he was a man of peace. He was a man who loved humanity. He was not a man of war. And it happens that a war broke out. We first read about it in chapter 14, verse 1. And it happened in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chador Laomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, that these made war on Bera, king of Sdom, Birsha, king of Amorah, Shinav, king of Admah, Shem Ever, king of Tzvuim, and the king of Bela, which is Tsoar. And they had this big battle in the valley of Sidim, which is where today the Dead Sea is located. So who are all these nations? You know, I always read this every year. Sort of, okay, I didn't really get into it too much. There was this war. I never really looked at the geopolitics of it. It became interesting, of course, when Avraham becomes involved in the war. We'll talk about that in a minute, but Actually, this year I looked a little more into it, and there are, it's known where all these different nations were located, and what the whole battle was about. And basically, some of the adversaries, if I'm correct, they came from as far as what is today Iran, and others from what is today Iraq, and certainly from the area around the Dead Sea in Israel. So it really was a big battle in the Middle East that could be called a type of world war in its day, involving many of the if not the exact protagonists today. Certainly the lands of those protagonists are represented in today's war. And it was a big, the axis of good against the axis of evil kind of thing. And Avraham was, standing on the side. But then his nephew, Lot, who was now living in Sodom, because we already had the incident where after returning from Egypt, where Avraham went down to Egypt because there was a famine in the land. When he returned, he and Lot had grown very prosperous, and their flocks were too great to share the land, so they split up, and Lot chose to live in the valley of what is today the Dead Sea. At that time, it was a green, beautiful valley, and he chose to live there in the city of Sodom. And so the city of Sodom in this war was attacked, and Lot was taken, among others, in captivity. That rings a bell, right? They're still doing it, taking people in captivity, taking hostages. And so it was told, we read in chapter 13 of verse 13 of chapter 14, then there came the fugitive and told Avram, the Ivri. It's known as an Ivri here, a Hebrew. Very interesting. What does Ivri mean? It means on the side of, the other side, because everybody was on one side and Avram was on the other side. He was different. He believed in the one God. Avram the Ivri, who dwelt in the plains of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol and the brother of Aner, these being Avram's allies. When Avram heard that his kinsman was taken captive, he armed his disciples who had been with him in his house, 318, and he pursued them as far as Dan. Dan is in northern Israel, and he with his servants deployed against them at night and struck them. He pursued them as far as Chovah, which is to the north of Damascus. He brought back all the possessions. He also brought back his kinsman Lot with his possessions, as well as the women and the people. So Avraham was not a man of war, he was a man of peace. But when his kinsman was taken captive, he dropped everything, just like hundreds of thousands of Israelis are doing today, dropped everything, and girded his loins, put together a commando unit, and went as far as Damascus, the same Damascus, which is a city in the capital of Syria, and inasmuch as Syria is a country now with the capital, it's the same city. And there they fought and liberated all the captives, men, women, and children, and brought them back. That's what we need to do today. And I'm hearing the music, and that's as good a spot as any to end this week's broadcast of Temple Talk. Yes, we, the children of Avraham, need to destroy the evil, destroy our enemies, and bring back all our hostages safe and sound. Thank you so much for being with me. Temple Talk.